Well, welcome. You made it. We're at the end of the day. You know, they told me when they gave me this slot that they were saving the best for last, so I'll let you guys decide that. Did everybody hear me okay, though? We're good? Cool. All right. Well, my name is Dano, Gillette, like Ben said. I'm the Senior Director of Engineering at Motivosity. At Motivosity, we do employee experience. We're really trying to help people enjoy their jobs. There's nothing more ideal than working for a company that wants to help other companies have their employees be happier. So we try and set the standard there. Like he was saying, the other thing I do is I also help run the UtahJS Lehigh meetup. And so one thing when I started having the idea that I wanted to speak here, which is my second time speaking, I was thinking about what I wanted to present on. And in the UtahJS Lehigh meetup, we have an assortment of people come to those meetups. And so I work a lot with product, and so I decided to kind of do a couple of product-y things here, and I decided to make some personas. Well, that's really bright. So you'll see here, we have 3 personas. These images are made by DALL-E, so there's imaginary people, but these are the type of people that I usually see come to our meetups. We have the first group, which is the looking for job. We have the second group, which is a junior mid-engineer, maybe people with 1 to 4 years of experience. And then we have the senior lead managers. It's people who've been in it for a while. They're working on projects, and they have teams of engineers. And so each of these people have different problems. Looking for the job is, well, I'm looking for a job. And a lot of these people can't get a job, they actually can't even get an interview. So they come to these and try to figure out, how do I even get an interview? The junior mid-engineers might be looking for the next promotion. How do I evolve my skill set? What am I trying to do next with my career? And then the senior managers are asking themselves, how do I help my team do better? How do I help my projects finish on time? These are the questions that I talk to a lot of people about, and I think they're fun topics overall. And so that's where I was kind of focusing a lot of what my this beginning part on these first 2 personas. It's surprising to me how many people that are looking for jobs when I ask them, hey, if you were to give me your resume right now, and I pull out my phone and I try and look up one of your URLs, what am I going to find? And how often people tell me, oh, I don't have anything in production. And I'm like, wow, that's crazy, okay. And they're like, or the other thing is I might hear, I have a capstone project. And I'm like, cool, so I get your homework. I want to be able to see something super valuable when I interview somebody. Same thing for what do I need to get my next job or promotion. I'm surprised how many people I talk to. I'm like, hey, what are you doing? They're like, I do front-end engineering. And then I try and expand upon that, and they've almost pigeonholed themselves into a very specific area. And to me, I like it all. Code is code, right? And I like to enjoy it all. And so we're going to go through today, and we're going to talk about how to go live. And so here's a couple of things that we're going to use, because I've just seen this problem with a lot of people, and we're going to make it very simple, and we're going to go live right now with an application. So first I'm going to use nodejs. That's going to be my front end. I'm going to use a backend with Node, but I'm going to use Nest, which is a framework. If anybody hasn't heard of it before, it's pretty awesome. It's got modules that are very easily installable. I'm a fan of having good frameworks. Those are the 2 applications we're going to use. Once we deploy this is how we're going to be getting it up to production. So I am going to use AWS. I think it's important. It's a resume builder to have AWS on your system. I know there's other places where you can do Vercel or Roku. There's other places that are great. I'm not trying to diminish those, but a lot of big companies have AWS, and they'd like to see it on your resume. So we're going to easily do it through AWS Amplify. We're going to deploy our Next.js application. And then we're also going to deploy our Node application through AWS Code Pipeline. That's going to set up a continuous integration and continuous deployment for us, very simply. And then we're going to go to Amazon Elastic Beanstalk, which, why it's called Elastic Beanstalk, I'm not actually sure. So I'm guessing it's because servers started out as beans, and then next thing you know, giants are falling out of the sky. So, they're terrifying. So without a couple of things that I did do before this, just because I wasn't sure how the internet would be and stuff, and so I set up a couple of things prior. I have my GitHub and AWS accounts already set up. I'm using Node 18 for this. I have a Node.js with Nest application already installed, which is very simple. You can go to their docs and very easily see this. I have the Next.js application installed too, and then I have basic coding understanding. So I'm expecting everybody here knows their basics around coding. And then I just have a good attitude, just ready. So let's get into it. Now, the first thing is if I look at my local machine, so I have both of my front end already running. So here I have my front end running, and I can make this bigger because it's probably tiny. I have my front end running. It's just on, and I'm also not trying to do anything fancy with the code. I could go to my localhost. Let's just go to localhost 3000. It's just going to be a super simple, as long as everything runs, application. Let's go live with Dano Gillette. Super simple. I don't really want to add anything because I want to show you that you don't really need much to go live. You can look at the backend. I have a very simple hello world. This is nest.js. In my folder structure, I have Visual Studio here, which I have my two applications open, my UtahJS API and my UtahJS frontend. The front-end is pretty darn simple. It's a basic Next.js install. There's a couple things that I changed here. I added within, let's see, the package.json. Oh, sorry, that's on the other one. Let me make sure. It's within the Utah API. Within my package.json, I've added a new deploy script. So this is in the backend. This is, at least for Nest, I've only created, that's really the only update, is just creating a new backend here. And then I also created a proc file, which is going to run my command. This is what CodePipeline is going to look at to run my command. It's just going to say run this npm run deploy script, which once again is a very simple npm install, npm run build, npm run start dev. It's really all we're doing with a basic Nest.js application. On the front end, really there was actually no configurations. The only thing I actually had to do was in the TS config, I had to skip over some ESLint stuff. I think it was in the ESLint. So really they're basic, just configurations, but I wanted to show that you really don't need much, and then you can program as much as you want. And I actually really appreciate that Matt went before this, showing all these cool things that you could build. I'm not going to go through and build those, because I just want to get something up to production, and I'll explain why. So I have these up. I've actually already pushed them up to GitHub, once again, just to save some time. So I have here that my UtahJS API, which is literally what I just showed you, just pushed up here. I have my UtahJS front end, which is once again pushed up to GitHub. Very simple. I'm expecting everybody knows how to push up. And so then what I do is I can go into AWS Amplify, and we're just going to create a new app. It's going to be pretty darn simple. We're going to host a web app. I'm going to go to GitHub. I'm going to do continue. I'm a programmer. I know how to push buttons. So once again, we'll be at the mercy of the internet a little bit. I'm going to choose my UtahJS front-end repository here. It's going to ask me what branch I want to use. I could choose any branch. I'm just going to use my main branch. It's going to ask me if I want to do any type of build configurations, which is one of the reasons why I like AWS compared to like Cloudflare. There's very minimal configurations for a lot of other softwares. This gives you a lot that you can do. I'm just going to keep it how it is. I'm going to save it. I'm going to deploy it, and we'll just leave that hanging there for a second. But I just deployed my front end, so got one done. We'll see in a second. So now for the backend, which I know for a lot of people, well, I don't touch backend, but we're going to make backend pretty simple. So in the backend, we have Elastic Beanstalk, which really is just a wrapper around your EC2s. It's just a wrapper around your servers. And we're going to make it pretty darn simple. We're going to have an application name, Utah node, UtahJS node API. So here's my environment name, and auto creates it. If I have a domain that I want to put in here, I could. I'm just going to have it auto-generate. I guess I could just do Utah node JS. Sure. API. And then it's going to ask me what type of platform I want to use. I'm going to use Node.js. You can use whatever you want here. I'm using Node 18, like I'd already explained earlier. It's going to use a sample application to start out because it won't have my application deployed to it yet. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to next. It's just once again asking me for my configurations. It's asking for EC2 pairs. I really don't care about any of this because I'm trying to be very simple about it. I could get into this, and this is where people start to get scared of AWS. I'm just going to press this nice little button and just skip to review. I'm just going to skip it all. It's beautiful. Just pretend it all doesn't exist. So now, I could go through and I could set up databases. That's one thing I am excluding here. I'm not creating a database because I want to keep this going. And then what I do is I come down here. I will then submit this build, which will then start building it. I will then go to my code pipeline, and this will take a little bit. So this is where I do already have this kind of up, because the Elastic Beanstalk can take a couple minutes on first configuration to set up. So I will then create a pipeline. This is very much like Amplify. I can create my pipeline name, which I can call it the UtahJS node API. It's going to have a new service role, sure. I'm going to go to next. It's going to choose my service provider. I'm going to use GitHub version 2. You'll have to set up your connection to GitHub, which I've already done. It's then going to ask me for my repository name. I'm going to go ahead and say UtahJS API. It's going to ask for which branch name I want to do. I'll do main. And then I'm going to go ahead and go no, next. It's going to say what build provider I want to use. I don't want one right now. You can build a build provider, but well, we can just keep on going. So once again, skip. And then deploy provider. So this is where we choose our Elastic Beanstalk. I can choose which application that I'm using, UtahJS API application, and then I can give an environment name if I want to too. So, I guess I have to right now. UtahJS environment. Let's see. There we go. All right. So there we go. Create pipeline. Okay. Let's go check in on our AWS Amplify. While that's going. Oh, look, it's done building and deploying. That was quick. Look, it even gives us this little URL. Let's see what happened. And the moment of truth. Look at that. All right. So we're live. Cool. So even just to show you, I do have routing set up. I can go see the games. We go to /games, routing set up. It was pretty simple, out of the box. I just created an Next.js route. It's as simple as it can be. What's cool is within Amplify, there's a lot you can do. You can do domain management where you can set up more domains. You can do build settings here. You can set up environment variables within here. It's pretty darn sweet. I like it, and it's very, very, very cheap. At my last company, we were having 3,000, 5,000 concurrent users at any moment. This was so inexpensive. So going back over to here, this probably didn't work, I'm guessing, because the Elastic Beanstalk wasn't ready at that point. So luckily, I already have one set up beforehand. So we're just going to go ahead and go to my Utah nodejs, and we have hello world. So this is my backend. And let's just see, I created even a little games endpoint. There's my content coming back. Obviously, it's like, but yeah. All right. Woo! That's done. I was like, I've been stressing about that for like, I don't know, a little while. So that worked out pretty well. All right, well, we have like 13 minutes. You know, we're gonna talk some more. Why not? So that was my goal. We did that in less than 10 minutes. So once again, what's my purpose here? We just went live. What else is there to really talk about? Well, that's just the start. Like going live is just the beginning. I think people get stuck there, and they don't actually get to enjoy the best parts of what you're doing, right? We went through, and obviously we did React. We did with Next.js. We went through Amplify. We went through Amazon EBS. We did all these really cool things. We have this site live, but I really want to do more. And so I think for a lot of people, they see this, right? They get really scared of AWS or just servers in general, right? And I get it. When you log in and you see, and this is a little old. What happened? Oh, I'm back. I'm back. There we go. So this is pretty daunting, right? Like you get in there and you're like, what do I even use? Like they do not make it simple. And so I get it. It's hard. But I do want to talk about how important it is to get live and get things in front of customers. So back in 2014, 2015, I got really into a game called Vainglory. Anybody ever play this? Probably not. Well, there we go. There's a couple. It was a pretty small mobile MOBA game where it was 3v3. It was a lot like Dota or League of Legends if you've played it before. I got really into it. I don't know why. I just thought it was like a blast. But I'm a data person. So every game I was like, how am I, like, I don't know if I'm getting better. I don't know if I'm getting worse. And so I was like, you know what they need? They need a stats website. And I'm not the best front-end engineer, to be honest. So I decided to make my own website. And look how pretty that is. Ooh. And it was pretty amazing. This is what your stats look like. You could definitely see amazing things coming out of this. No, it's just, I can promise you, you guys are making much cooler things than I could make. But I thought this was useful. They didn't have an API. I didn't want to do some like image recognition. I just want something to track my stats. So I did this and I posted it on Reddit and I was like, hey, I'm using this. I like this. And people started loving it. And I started getting a lot of people coming to my website. So much that I got back to the developers and they put it in their app. And I was like, holy cow, I made it in the app off of garbage, you know, like just nothing. So I started building more. I redid a team page. It was like you can submit your team and you start doing things there. I changed post-match stats and added graphs. I didn't know how to do a lot of this stuff on the front end, but I was like, I really am enjoying this, and I was getting feedback from people. Then the company opened up an API, and they worked with me. They said, hey, what content do you need? And I was like, holy cow, what is going on? And so I redid the whole page. I started doing designs. I had rich media with YouTube links that would auto-generate. I was just like, I was feeling it. I remember when I hit 100 concurrent viewers on my website at one point, and I was like, this is crazy. And for any of those who've made your own database schema before and had 100 concurrent users on it, you start to realize how bad you are at database design, you know? And so everything became slow. And I was like, I've got to solve this problem. I didn't have indexes anywhere. And so I realized all these things, and I didn't have a product manager with me to tell me what to do next. And so I kept on just figuring out these ideas. And at the end, they ended up giving me a permanent spot on their website. And I'm the blue one over there, Vayner Rank. I even have a hat I made for it because they invited me to their World Championships in Seattle and gave me a ticket. And I was like, this is crazy. It all started from this crappy website, but it served a purpose. And so that's why a lot of people, I don't think that they realize, they spend all these time for 2 years working on this project that they just hold tight to themselves. And I'm like, get it out there. See what happens. You never know what's going to happen. And so my message is go live. Like really, it's go live. But that's just the start. And so I want to talk about Newton's first law of motion. An object at rest will remain at rest. An object in motion will continue in motion unless affected by an unbalanced force, right? And you need to figure out where you are. Are you the ball resting, or are you the ball in movement? Because there's going to be things that come up. For a lot of people, that friction right here is going to be AWS. They're going to be like, I can't get past this, and I don't really want to. And so you have to figure out what these things are, right? And so once again, the ball might be you. It might be what you're learning or your project or your team. It might be any number of these things, right? The net over here might be a new software that you don't want to learn like AWS, or it might be a lack of progression where you don't feel like you have the ability within your company, or an impossible expectation that your company's putting on you. And it becomes demoralizing for you to be able to do that. But there's a lot of things that you can do to get your motion going, right? Write and release something in new software. I think it's one of the best things for you to do is to release something in something that you don't know well, because it's going to teach you right away. Asking for more responsibility within your company, I think, is a good thing to do, and then setting and holding yourself accountable. A lot of these things are you putting yourself out there in front of people, because I think the more people you tell, the more you're going to be accountable for it, and the more likely you are to actually do it. And so what I'd hope is that you leave this presentation with this thought. I need to build and keep momentum. I think momentum individually and on a team is super important. Now, I want to talk about, not like with this momentum and these ideas, when you start working on something, you have two different things that you need. You need an idea, and you need the work to do it. And everybody here, I'm under the assumption, has the capabilities to do the work to go live with something. And so what I'd like to help people out here with in this of trying to figure out, okay, how do I get going, is what idea you might need to. I've already showed you how to do the work. Like, we can do the work. We can make this thing happen. But I think for a lot of people, they look at, for example, Vayner Rank, and they'll be like, how'd you get that idea? Or I don't have any good ideas, or stuff like that. And so that's the other hurdle when I talk about the net that stops people, is they go, well, I can do all this stuff, but I don't really know what I should do next. And so once again, I want to help and figure out what that idea is. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to put on my product hat, and it's not spelled right, but you can thank Stall-E for that. It's so bad, I had to actually just share this. I put hat with the word product spelled right, on it. And this is what it came up with. Like, this is just, the only one that says product on it, I wasn't sure it was a hat. It looks like a column on cement or something. And so I chose which one looked the most like a hat and the most like product. And so there you go. I have my product hat on it. And so I've been working really close to this product, and it's been fun, kind of going over some ideas. And so I've been reading some books about it, and one of the books I read was called The Right It. And I honestly recommend it for engineers. I think it's a great book because it talks about this concept of when you're coming up with an idea, you have a couple stages. The first one is thought land, where most people live. It's this idea that I have. I've been concocting it up, and I've asked people, oh, people are interested, but you don't really know anything. And most people jump from thought land over to prototype. And this is a functional preliminary model. It's like an MVP. And they say, I'm going to build this, especially engineers, because we're like, we are capable. We're just going to build this thing. And then 3 years later, they're like, is it done yet? Well, it's never done. You know, like, and that's the truth, right? It's never done. And so they introduced the middle, which is prototype. And it's a pretend prototype. It's basically saying that you don't actually need anything to prove your concept's a good idea. And so the whole thing is, if let's say you're going to write a book, instead of writing the whole book and spending 5 years to write a book just to find out nobody's interested, why not just write the back of the book? and post it somewhere and see if people even are interested in the back of the book. The back of the book takes 2 weeks, right? But instead, people spend all this time and nobody ever reads it. And maybe you write the back of the book, post it somewhere, and then you get feedback and you get people to subscribe to your idea, and then you know people are interested, or you get feedback on how you should improve it before you write the book. And so I really like this idea because all of us think we have the power of the sun in the palm of our hands. And we just think that we just need to go because that's what we are capable of doing. But I'm going to tell you that you should stop wasting time. I think it's a big part of this is you're just wasting time. You probably have good ideas that if you just get them out there, you'll be able to move a lot faster and you'll be able to do a lot better. And so I want to return back to these personas and talk a little bit about them and how this applies to each of them. For the person who's looking for a job, my greatest advice is build something real. I think if you can get something in production and you can get something that's in front of people and customers find value in it, I can promise you an interviewer is going to find value in it too. And they're going to say this is impressive. I've seen that before. I remember one of my favorite people I hired, she didn't even have a website, but what she did is she worked on open source projects. She had a bunch of open source commits, and I could see all of her interactions with people, and I was like, this is amazing. It was real, it was effective, and we hired her. She was great. For the second person, the junior or mid-engineer, what do I need to do next to get my promotion? It's create real business value. I really think that if you can create business value, it's really important. But even before even being like, oh, I'm going to build, they've given me this huge project, I need to build it perfectly, maybe you can be the person that actually can explain to them that you don't need all of this. How many people have been stuck in a project where you don't know if it's ever going to finish because it's so big, right? I've definitely been in those where it's, you have this thing that never ends and scope keeps on changing. And the people I value on my team the most are the people who can question some of these ideas and go, do we really need all of these things? What if we were to bring it down and get the same amount of value, but in a much quicker time frame? And if developers that can think that way are developers that you want to get into architecture, you want them to get into other decision-making positions. And then for the last person, how can I help my team project do better? One thing I think a lot of people get into is they get bad expectations or they miss things. And so what I always say is you should fight for your own expectations and to complete a project and complete it on time. Because that first one will lead you into a second one being better. And once again, this is talking about Newton's law of motion. I think once you can get one right, and you get the second right, and you get the third right, your team will get into a groove. And that's where I talk about momentum. I think in a lot of these things, the smaller you can shrink down some of your projects, and the more you can get wins, the more you'll see yourself, your team, your projects do better. And it will create momentum, and you'll all love it, and it just creates way better teams overall. And so I'm really a believer in this idea of momentum. I want you to think about that. That's if there's one thing I can get, is that, yes, this is called Let's Go Live, but it's because I just want to get that thought out of your way and get that blocker out of your way, which I would encourage you to think about those friction points in your career right now and try and get them out of the way and build that momentum to get you to a higher level. Thanks.